Hello, my friend. Welcome to Gleaning the Scriptures. It's a very condensed version of our Wednesday night Bible study. If you want to join us for a Bible study live stream, we start food and fellowship at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, and the Bible study generally begins around 6:45 on the fourth day of the week. That's Wednesdays. This week's study was on chapter 2 of Leviticus. The Bible study we are working through can be found at www.gleaningthescriptures.com. Navigate to the Bible Studies section and click on the Leviticus Study button. This question was not covered in the live stream, and we will start by addressing it now. Chapter 1 touched on various animal offerings. Chapter 2 discusses what kind of offerings. The answer is that Chapter 2 talks about various offerings of grain. We will quickly now touch on a foundation question before moving into our participants' answers. Do the sacrifices of animals save, or have they saved anybody ever? The answer to this question is a resounding no. The sacrificial system provided atonement and a canvas by which obedient men and women can gain a deeper relationship with God. But the sacrificial system has never provided a single soul and never will provide a single soul with salvation. Now that that is out of the way, let's move on to the first participant question. Sarah took a question concerning leaven. A verse in this chapter, verse 11, mentions that we shall not offer our offerings with leaven. The question Sarah eloquently answered was, what does leaven do? What characteristics of leaven did Yeshua use as a word picture that all the time when he preached? Why would he not allow leaven in his grain offerings? Sarah touched on both the positive and negative uses of the word leaven. Leaven being like the truth spreading through a person within themselves, changing him from the inside out. Leaven, though, is mainly spoken of by Yeshua in a negative context, as in the leaven of the Pharisees, speaking of how deceitful doctrines of men, they spread like wildfire, unfortunately. Sarah mentioned that leaven has an effect on dough, changing it and molding its shape and form. Why would God not want leaven in his offerings or sacrifices? He wants our sacrifices to be untainted by outside influences. He wants our sacrifices to come from a pure heart, a heart that does not expect anything in return or is trying to use the sacrifice as leverage to produce some outcome. Instead, our sacrifices are to be holy, a sacrifice, not wanting an outcome but giving it all to God in trust. Great answer, Sarah. I will add, my friends, that I call this, and you're welcome to use this term wherever you'd like, but please cite your work. This appropriate sacrifice, lacking leaven, is called sacrifice with sacrifice. I put a teaching out on this back in August titled The Coming Temple, Spiritual Sacrifice, Your Place as a Believer in Messiah Yeshua, portion A. It is also a podcast on Spotify if that is your preferred platform. Mariah took the next question. Why do you think oil, frankincense, and salt are so important with the offerings? Do you know anything special about these compounds that might help you understand why Yehovah made sure to include these excellent elements to his instructions for us? Mariah, she answered this question both methodically and spiritually. I was honestly impressed. She started with oil, mentioning that oil can be found in Psalm 45:7 and in Isaiah 61:3 as the oil of joy or the oil of gladness. She recognized that this is a tacit way that Yehovah is reminding us that although we are making a sacrifice, we are to come to him with joy and gladness. Next, she spoke of frankincense, mentioning that frankincense is associated with royalty. It is very expensive and is one of the 3 gifts that the wise men gave to Yeshua as a lad. Mariah pointed out to us that ensuring frankincense is part of a particular type of offering, that when it is included in that particular offering, it is a reminder that Yeshua wants our very best. This is very hard to put into practice, but it is worth it. Lastly, Mariah spoke of salt. We had a good long discussion on salt in the live stream and on leaven, but Mariah's study this week brought on the share that salt preserves, and without salt, things become tasteless. She found this in Mark 10, 49, 50. It might have been Mark 9. Mariah finished up her answer saying that we as believers are supposed to be the salt of the earth. Great answer, Mariah. Thank you for your insights. Barb and the rest of us had a great discussion during the live stream on salt and why our offerings are never to lack salt. The long and short of it is that our sacrifices are to resemble salt, like Yeshua's sacrifice for us resembles salt, in that their purpose is preservation. How? Preservation? How, you might ask? Well, if salt keeps meats from perishing, and in Hosea we are told a lack of knowledge is what causes God's people to perish, then it is a sound path of thought to consider that the sacrifices were and are a canvas that teach God's people the intricacies of what proper sacrifice looks like. My friends, notice it's a lack of knowledge that causes us to perish, not a lack of information. Information is not always trustworthy, like tabloids, television, or gossip, or the Apocrypha, while knowledge is edifying and brings life, preservation, and solid ground. Knowledge is truth and trustworthy. Speaking of trustworthy, I know something that is trustworthy. That's the end of the video is here. Look, if you want to participate with us this week in our memory verse for the Chapter 3 live stream, here it is. The first and last verses of Leviticus chapter 3 is our memory verse for this week. Thank you for joining us. Go with God, and in doing so, may He abundantly bless the work of your hands. It's bye for me. Shalom.